In the year 68, the people of the Roman Empire suffered heavy taxation due to the fiscal irresponsibility of the Emperor Nero. Some historians believe Nero was beloved by his people, especially in the East, where he had won a war, but traditionally he's believed to be despised as the tyrant who killed his mother and lived a life too lavish. The governor of the Roman province of Gallia Lugdunensis declared rebellion against the financial burden. When the legions of Germania Superia were ordered to put down the revolt, the governor called upon Servius Sulpicius Galba, the governor of Hispania Tarraconensis, to join the rebellion and to declare himself as emperor. Galba was known to be a cruel disciplinarian, but he gained vast support nonetheless, growing old in his years of effective service to the empire. The Germanic legions succeeded in putting down the initial revolt, but empowered by their victory, they attempted to declare their own general as emperor. The general refused the ambition, but the news made it plain to all how little support Nero actually had, and support for Galba continued to grow. In June, a prefect of the Imperial Praetorian Bodyguard convinced his men to transfer their loyalty to Galba. With support rapidly failing, Nero fled the city. After hearing that the Senate had declared against him and had planned on beating him to death in the Forum, he committed suicide. A succession crisis is one of the calamities which can befall a hereditary monarchy. Under this system, a sovereign's legitimacy comes from his esteemed ancestors, but Nero was the last of the line of Augustus, the empire's founding sovereign that established her monarchical dynasty. This was the first time there had not been a clear heir. According to the Roman historian Tacitus, with the ending of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the realm entered an unstable period. This is the year 69, known as the Year of the Four Emperors. With Nero dead, the Senate declared for Galba, and he was welcomed into the city at the head of a single legion. Support for Galba was short-lived, however. He was less than lenient to towns that did not accept him immediately, and canceled all the reforms of Nero, some of which were popular with important subjects. The paranoia of high office did not escape him either, and many threats were put to death without trial. A strict disciplinarian, Galba also refused to pay the Praetorian Guard the rewards they expected, seeing it as a bribe. On top of this, in the start of the year 69, the legions of Germania Inferior refused to swear allegiance to Galba and instead declared Vitellius, their newly appointed governor, as emperor. Vitellius was a renowned gambler and glutton, but he would feast with senator and soldier alike, causing him to be beloved by many. When the news of the Germanic Legion was revealed to Galba and the weakness of his rule made plain, he attempted to strengthen his legitimacy by declaring an heir and successor. But, in naming one successor, Galba refused another. Otho was the governor of the province of Lusitania and had ruled the province effectively for 10 years. Once a friend of Nero, Otho encouraged Galba to rebel and assisted him financially. Though capable, Otho was ambitious and somewhat reckless. Upon hearing the news of Galba's adoption of another, Otho used his finances to bribe the Praetorian Bodyguard. When he realized this, Galba ran to the streets in desperate support for his rule, but no one claimed for him. He and his heir were killed by the Imperial Guard in the Forum. On the same day, the Senate recognized Otho as the new rightful emperor. There was hope that Otho would restore peace and moderation to the empire. But once emperor, Otho was made aware of the desperation of the situation regarding the revolt of the Germanic legions. Vitellius had accepted the title of emperor from his troops and sent half of his army to march on Italy. The legions of Germany were some of the strongest in the empire, veterans of the Germanic wars. Seeking peace, Otho sent emissaries to the army, offering to marry Vitellius' daughter, but the generals leading Vitellius' forces were not interested in negotiating. After several minor victories, Otho was defeated, and in an effort to save the realm from continued civil war, committed suicide. He had been emperor for a little more than 3 months. Vitellius was declared emperor by the Senate on news of Otho's death. Famed and sometimes loved for his hedonism, he quickly ran up debts and spent the imperial treasury on feasts and parades. As a quick source of income, he started killing citizens who named him as their heir, as well as his possible rivals. Meanwhile, the legions in Egypt and Judea had declared the general Vespasian as emperor. Vespasian had been given a special command by Nero in 67 in order to put down the Great Jewish Revolt. Vespasian had had a long and successful career of service and had earned the respect of many in the Roman world. After gaining the support of the governor of Syria, Vespasian sent a large force to march on Rome, but before they could reach the imperial heartland, the Danubian legions also acclaimed Vespasian as emperor and invaded Italy. In October, those forces won a crushing victory over Vitellius's army. Seeing the writing on the wall, Vitellius looked to the city for support, but to no avail. He sent emissaries to negotiate a truce and start peace talks. On a last-minute visit to the palace before fleeing, he was caught by Vespasian's men and killed. The following day, the Senate acknowledged Vespasian as emperor. It was December 21st in the year 69, the year that had begun with Galba on the throne. Though it is difficult to see the truth of a moment through such a thick fog of time, there is still wisdom to be gained from what is visible. It had been nearly 100 years since the last civil war, and few could have predicted how rapidly the realm descended into chaos. The first man in Rome held vast power, but it disintegrated in the blink of an eye when it became plain how little support there was for him. The men who rose to replace him each had their own disparate reasons and motivations. Vitellius alone could claim to have been swept along on the schemes of others, himself content to feast and carouse in Germania. His leniency and lack of discipline made him an incompetent ruler, but beloved by his men who happened to be some of the most capable soldiers in the empire. Galba was famed for his discipline, and many expected him to perform effectively, but his discipline and willingness to pay the guard what he saw as a bribe destabilized one of the pillars of his security. Galba's intent in naming his heir was honorable, but in adopting the man not most agreeable to himself, but the one most serviceable to the Romans, as Plutarch writes, he sowed the seeds of his own undoing. Vespasian was also a strict disciplinarian, but the virtue was more easily born when it was demanded by one with martial prowess and a commanding presence. He was also known for his agreeable nature, his intelligence, and his temperance. Vespasian's power base was vast and had been established through a lifetime of merit. He had been called out of retirement by Nero to govern North Africa, and though he was no longer in Nero's good graces due to paying insufficient attention to the emperor's lyre performance, when the crisis in Judea erupted, Nero appointed the most capable man to the job. The rise of Vespasian did not mean peace for the empire, and revolts continued throughout the year 70, but he was able to maintain authority and return relative stability to the realm, and his competency gave legitimacy to his heirs, the new Flavian dynasty. Most emperors were deified after their death, and when his final moments were upon him, Vespasian jokingly quipped that he would soon be a god. He died in the year 79.